Hey, this is Daniel from Adorama. Today on set, I'm going to try to answer a question that I get all the time, which is, how many lights do I need? And I guess the answer to that is, it depends on what you're doing, but if we take it in the most simplest form, if you are working for yourself, doing what you want, creating an image, you could get away with using one light for a lot of things. So we're going to start off using one light for each one of these setups, and then I'm going to add additional lights, and you can determine whether or not you think that it's worth it or not for you to have those additional lights, and how many lights you would need. Okay, so for this first setup, I have Justina here. It's a very simple setup. Although you see a lot of cards bouncing around, that's because we're in a white studio, so I really want to show you what the light's doing, so we put some black cards up just to block the light bouncing around. But essentially, I have a beauty dish with the grid from one side. This is going to create a really dramatic shot where half the face is going to be lit and then the other half is going to go into darkness. And also, even though the wall is white behind her, it's going to be pretty much black because no light's going to get back there. This is kind of a cool look for a lot of different feels, and it can, right out of the camera, be a nice shot. We could take a shot of her like this, so right at the camera and kind of intense. And it's really nice. It's kind of mysterious. It's got a certain feel to it, a certain flavor, and you could be happy with this just as it is. So let's see what happens when we add another light. So I have a Profoto B1 in the back, and it's fitted with a grid. The first thing I'm going to do is, because if I want to keep my background dark and mysterious, I don't want any light to hit it back there, so I'm going to use a grid from the back to give a hair or separation light to her. So we're going to bring this in, and we're going to just hit her in the back, you know, on the opposite side of the key light. I'm going to hit her with a hair light and for some separation. Okay, so I'm using a light meter facing towards the light that's coming in from the rear. I want to make sure it's brighter than my key light, so it gives me a nice kind of bright separation light. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, so that's now added a little bit of spark to that side of her hair. I decided to let it overexpose a tiny bit just for effect. You can set the power wherever you like. You can make it really subtle. You can make it super bright so it flares back. That's really up to you. So that's pretty cool. The other way that I could do this to give separation to that side of her hair without giving her like a classic hair light is we could point the light at the background, but not dead center at the background. I'll point it kind of more towards where the shadow side is on her face. That way you've got bright light on one side of her face, darkness on the other, but the background is exactly the opposite. So let's see what that looks like. We finished up that last one, and I quickly moved the lights around to kind of a more classic portrait setup. So I have a softbox here on Justina, and I'm relatively close to a white wall. So what I'm going to get is a nice kind of soft light on her face with some shadows, and then in addition, the wall is going to be lit by the softbox, so it'll be kind of a gray color. And again, since I'm in control of this, I can make it any way I want. I can be happy with the gray, and let's see what that looks like. Good. Okay, good. So that looks nice. It's actually a really nice shot. A lot of people will be very happy with that. But let's say we want to make it a little more classic. We could add this a little bit of light on the wall to give that kind of little halo behind the subject. That's a really classic way to shoot a portrait. So let's add I have a B1 in the back with a grid on it. So let's see what that looks like. I'm gonna turn it on here. Nice. Right, so now we've got a little separation. So instead of having a flat gray wall, we've got a gray wall with a little bit of brightness in the center. You could also throw a little gel on there or something if you wanted to get a little color. So you may like dark shadows, and it might be really nice for everything you're doing, but if you want to make sure that you have all the detail that you can get, what you might want to add is a fill light. So that's the next thing I'm gonna add. So what I have behind me is just a big silk with another Profoto head shooting through it, and let's see what that looks like. Good. Yeah. So now again, we have a nice portrait, but with the shadows filled in where you have detail in all your shadows. Later on in post, I could crunch the dark sides and make it a little bit more contrasty if I want, but I have the detail there if I want it. Okay, so for our final shot here, I've set up kind of a dramatic style of light for Justina with the light above her. So having the light above is typically not something that you want to do because you're going to get deep dark shadows in the eyes. Now for this particular shot I have in mind though, I'm going to have her with her chin up, really showcasing her long neck. So let's just see what that looks like. If you work your chin up a little bit into the light. Right, so it's going to create a nice, beautiful light on her face because her face is in the light with deep shadows coming down, and it's wonderful. But if that was my whole idea, then basically my photo shoot is done because that's all I can do with this scenario. But if I add in a fill light from the front, something just to bring the shadows up a little bit so I don't have such deep dark shadows, then basically I can shoot her in all different positions to get a nice shot across her face no matter where she moves it. So if I plug in the fill light, which I have right here, now I have basically a head shooting through a big silk in the background. It's just gonna give me a wash of light in the front. This is gonna bring up all my shadows, so my background's gonna get a little bit brighter too, but this is gonna give her a lot more freedom to move around. So I got my first shot, then I'm just gonna take something like this and see what they look like. So when it comes down to how many lights do I need, it really comes down to your personal choice when you don't have to create a very specific shot. If there's a specific shot you're trying to make, obviously you need to study that shot and decide what you need, but if you're shooting for yourself, use one light, use two lights, whatever makes you happy. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I'll see you next time on set.